What's up guys, Kazungu here and welcome back to another new Destiny 2 video, and today I'm going to go over the weapon changes outlined in this week's TWAB update. Before we begin, however, if you liked this video or found it helpful, remember that a like and subscribe is always greatly appreciated and goes a long way to help out my channel. Check me out on Twitch too if you feel like it, link in description as always, and we have a lot of changes to unpack, so let's get on to the video. This TWAB starts off with some terms being defined, but these are mainly just some things about how weapons are divided internally, so I'm going to skip over all this since it's not particularly important to the overall weapon changes coming in Season 15. Starting with the addition of legendary stasis weapons, these are going to go in the kinetic slot, just like Cryothesia 77k currently does, and they do not have any different functionality from normal weapons, but they will be the only weapons able to roll with special stasis perks. Stasis heavy weapons are going to go in the heavy slot as always, and for the special stasis perks I previously mentioned, they appear to generally require a kill to trigger for any kind of slow or freeze effect, preventing them from taking over PvP entirely. On top of all of these changes, the quick swap glitch has also been fixed. So double slug shotguns in PvE just lost quite a bit of its DPS potential, but its total damage will still be quite high. You will also not have to worry about getting quick swap one-shot by bow Arianas in PvP anymore, so I think that the quick swap glitch being removed is actually a good change. Primary ammo is also receiving some changes, starting with all primary weapons now actually having infinite ammo. This was something being theorized for a couple of weeks now due to the changes to the Titan's inertia override ability, since it would have been really busted if primary bricks still littered the ground. On top of all of this, perks have been adjusted for the change, with drop mag now being an increase to reload but a decrease to magazine size, and the bow perk compact arrow shaft changing to buff reload and handling instead of reserves. There's also some other changes that'll be coming later, mostly to the exotic weapons, but it's good to have some of these underused perks getting updated and seeing primary ammo become infinite, since it is never fun to run out of primary ammo in a GM or a raid. Small changes here, but since Trials weapons will be more efficiently farmable in Season 15, they were now going to have 7 perks per column instead of 5, and both the Moon and Dreaming City weapons that were recently reissued will now have a few of their original perks available again. Going forward, Bungie has said that their weapon reissues are now going to make sure to take away unused perks on weapons and add new ones that may create new god rolls without removing the old ones. I do think this is a good change, and we always like to see some perk refreshes coming to weapons as long as they don't ruin the weapon, like a lot of the current versions of the Moon weapons have. Breach grenade launchers are having their blast radius reduced by 0.4 meters to decrease their usage in PvP, and they're receiving a reduction of 20 damage to their intrinsic splash, while having their PvE damage buffed by 12% to accommodate. Witherhoard is not affected by this change since it does not behave like other breach-loaded grenade launchers. Machine guns are going to receive a blanket 20% damage buff in PvE. This is 100% needed since machine guns are kind of bad in PvE at the moment, and also scout rifles and hand cannons are both receiving a blanket 15% increase in their damage against minor tier enemies in PvE. Another great change since scouts and hand cannons have been pretty weak since the changes to headshot ratios in Shadowkeep. For fusion rifles, their PvE damage has been increased by 15% across the table, but this will affect different subfamilies differently since some already had a slight PvE bonus. High impact fusions, which currently do not have any PvE bonus, will receive the full 15% buff, precisions and adaptive will receive an additional 5% buff from their current damage, and rapid fire fusions will have a 2.5% increase from their current values. High impact fusions will now also charge slightly slower and only fire 5 shots instead of 7. This will result in less damage per burst, but have more range overall. Precisions and adaptives will still fire 7 shots with their current charge rates, and a very slight increase to their overall damage per burst. Rapid fire fusions will now charge faster, fire 9 shots per burst for an increased total damage output, but less overall range. This is really big because rapid fire fusions currently in the game have some of the highest PvE damage output of special weapons. Things like Null Composure or Zealot's Reward are going to be really fantastic going forward, so I would recommend making sure you at least have Null Composure already. Some other fusion rifle perks and mods have been changed to accommodate for these new changes to fusions. Backup Plan will now scale damage and adjust the charge time multiplier instead of its previous halving of the charge time. Liquid Coils and Accelerated Coils will now also scale the charge time and damage. Adept charge time has been changed to scale the charge time instead of directly changing the stat, and it no longer adjusts the damage of the fusion according to the charge time. But there's a bunch of math nonsense about why they cannot change the charge time masterwork, but TLDR, these changes make charge time masterworks hurt the impact of the weapon less than they currently do and may be addressed again in the future, depending on if Bungie thinks it's needed. On to exotics, which I would think would be the main event for this TWAB. We have the much anticipated nerf to Anarchy. This beast of a grenade launcher now has its total reserves and magazine size reduced from 26 to 16. Anarchy now has a reduced damage by 30% against bosses. Important to note that champions are not considered bosses. This gun will still be great for things like Grandmasters, but it definitely will not be dominating DPS encounters of raids and dungeons anymore. I do think this nerf was needed, but it's definitely sad to see it go, although I am very excited to figure out what may take its place. Xenophage has also received a change. It will now be a 90 RPM fire rate instead of 120, and it receives less of the PvE damage buff to machine guns. It will now have less damage per second, but more burst and sustained damage now that it's become more ammo efficient. I know that the 90 RPM fire rate change from 120 seems like a direct nerf, but actually it will keep Xenophage fairly competitive since it is now much more ammo efficient than it was before with the tweaks to its damage values. Fighting Lion now has the infinite primary ammo change with the same blast radius and damage changes shipped to other breach-loading grenade launchers. It now has a much slower base reload, but it will increase its reload speed with damaging enemies with one grenade. Keep in mind that Fighting Lion can be reloaded without having to manually reload the weapon. It's still going to be just fine for all of the fans of the Fighting Lion that are out there. Vex Mythoclast is also finally receiving its buff with a 40% increase to its PvE damage, a massive increase in its range to match high-impact auto rifles, increased stability, and the Catalyst will now grant stability and damage after a kill. Fire rate is now up to 390 RPM from 360 RPM, and the linear fusion mode charges the same rate as a normal LFR now, and you will no longer lose your overcharge stacks when you stow the weapon unless you've already swapped it to the linear mode. Merciless is also getting adjusted to account for the now fewer shots per burst that it will have, but it is also receiving a buff to counteract that. It will now have a reduced damage penalty by 40% for increasing the charge rate with its perk. This will make Merciless do more damage with subsequent hits against the same target. Yotan now also has a slightly faster charge rate with a slightly reduced damage per shot, and according to the TWAB, there's almost no difference, but they want to put this in the notes for transparency's sake. Bastion is also receiving a PvP nerf of a 15% damage reduction, as well as a 10% increase to its spread angle, but at the same time is receiving a PvE buff of 25% damage increase. Sweet Business's perk has also been adjusted for the infinite primary ammo change, so it now refills the mag when you pick up special or heavy ammo. Firing line has now been changed to be a 20% bonus universally, still rolling on, quote, snipers, linear fusion rifles, and machine guns, and maybe some other stuff in the future. Kill Clip, Rampage, and Adrenaline Junkie are now also all going to properly affect explosive payloads detonation damage, and some weapon VFX changes are here for rockets and grenade launchers, as well as linear fusions and fusions. We also get a sneak peek at the new Ritual rocket launcher for next season. It's going to have Wendigo's explosive light perk, which is nice to see coming back, and on top of that, we're getting our usual new post-game weapons for Gambit, Strikes, and the Crucible, which appears to be a Scout for Gambit, a sidearm for Strikes, and an auto for Crucible. This is also some really standard stuff, but I'm really excited for the Scout from Gambit, since it seems to use a similar model to Call to Serve from the Red War campaign, which is one of my personal favorite weapons from the vanilla Destiny 2 campaign. We're also going to get some trials of the 9 weapons for Prophecy, and new reprises for the Whirlpool, with a sniper, an auto, a rapid-fire scout, a hand cannon, a sidearm, and a pulse rifle. I don't remember the names of all of these weapons. I'm sorry, but there are quite a few weapons being added to the World Loot Pool again. Always good to see more weapons being brought back. However, that's all I have for this video, so if you liked it or found it helpful, a like is always appreciated, and if you want, click subscribe as well as the bell icon for notifications whenever I make a new video. And check out my Twitch, which is linked below if you want to catch some live streams. As always, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.